off the evening with a presentation. It's all about business, right? Every one of you that are ITL subscribers, you're always asking me questions, and I always try to remember to remind you that this is about making money and trying to stay solvent and trying to do this in a sound way. I always get two questions. One of them from scouts is, how much does my buddy make? And from agents, how much are these guys spending to be signing these kids and that kind of thing? So I decided tonight to try to answer both those questions. Obviously, over the last 6 weeks, we've been conducting a pretty rigorous survey of compensation packages for scouts. And I know that a lot of them have already taken off, but we're filming this so that they can watch this later and kind of get a better handle on what the numbers really look like. So I wanted to kind of run through that very quickly. Should we turn the light on?
Turn that mic up.
Mic up.
Oh, to me? Okay. All right. Okay, so go first. All right. Okay, so about a fourth of all scouts responded this year. That's the best we've ever had. We're really excited about that. We got a good sampling across all 4 experience divisions.
Turn the lights off, maybe? Do we have that ability?
I can.
Steven, turn off the lights, please. See if I can read. Still read.
There.
Is that better? All right,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay. We expected the 6 to 10 years of experience group to be the highest, and it was. We got 33% of all respondents from there. Limitations on our survey, obviously there were some. Number one, we've got anonymity, so we don't really know who's responding, if everyone's responding from one team. We don't have that kind of cross-section, or we don't have a guarantee of that. I'm hopeful that we did achieve that. It's all honor system stuff, so I guess people could be making it up. I don't know why they would, but it's possible. And third, we don't have the body of work to really compare year over year. So as we continue to move forward with this, though, we will, and we look forward to being able to kind of track and see how salaries are either growing or declining. Other observations?
Can you say what's on the X and Y axis?
That's years of experience, and let's see, yeah,
percentage
by different groups. So we've got 0 to 5, and I'll address all this as we go forward. 0 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, and 16 plus. A couple other observations. As expected, the majority of scouts are on 2-year deals. That's one of the questions we asked. More than expected are on 1-year deals. 17% of all respondents. I can't attribute that to anything but that there are some scouting assistants that are on year-to-year deals. About 25% of the people on 0 to 5, less than 5 years, are on 1 year. They confirm that, and about 80% of those surveyed had no director level experience. So with all that said, let's move to the next slide, and just look at the 0 to 5s. So about a third of people that have 5 years or less of experience are making $50,000 to $65,000. That's about a third. Yeah, about a third. About a fourth are making $80,000 to $100,000. So I thought that was pretty good, really, given that they're still kind of new, still kind of trying to figure it all out, and yet some of them are approaching, getting in the neighborhood of 100. Now the bottom of the scale remains low, although I get the sense that it's improving. Only 50% of people with less than 5 years are making 50% or $50,000, although one respondent, again, honor system, I hope he was telling the truth, is making 100, which is pretty good for a newer scout. Next frame, please. Now, by your third 2-year contract, your floor is about $50,000 based on our numbers. That's less than 20% are making less than $80,000. So I thought that was pretty good too, that 80% of scouts that have at least 6 years in the business are making $80,000. Almost half, 44%, are making $100,000 or more. So I thought that was positive as well. And more than a fifth are making $125,000 or more. Again, they're not directors. These are just scouts who've been in the game for 6 to 10 years. So to me, on across the board, I think that's pretty decent. All right, next frame, please. Now you see there's a purple line going across there. That means because everyone that's who's been 11 to 15 years is making $125,000 or more. I think that's pretty good. Now, I will note also that 70% of the respondents are making this despite no director level experience. So these guys have never sat in the college director chair, never even assistant director. They've certainly never been GMs or DPPs. So to be making 125 without ever having to have that role, I think is a positive development for the scouting industry. Again, we can't compare this year over year, but at least this year I thought that was decent. Now, so I would recommend that if you've been on the road for more than a decade and you're not in this range, talk to your GM because you're a little underpaid. All right, looking at 16 plus. Obviously, same is true as far as 125 plus. We did have one who is making under 125, which surprised me a little bit. But overall, it looks like they're most making in that 125 probably to 150 range, maybe even north of that. Now, at this level, greater than half of the respondents had director level experience, so the results were not unexpected because these guys have sat in the GM chair, sat in another high level role, so they obviously had a lot of experience and were used to making some decisions. So a few observations. Overall, I think salaries seem to be rising, or at least in line with experience with non-NFL professions. I mean, if you're the 6 to 10 year level experience as a middle manager or something like that, and you're in 80 to 100, I think that you have to be pretty happy. The breakdown comes, of course, in the number of hours that these scouts put in, the conditions, the driving, all those kind of things that make the job especially challenging. Yes, you are working in the league, but it still has its pitfalls, its ups and downs. So the satisfaction is mostly with the workload. The other thing that's difficult is that, and that this is not reflected up here, but having looked at the game over the last 5 to 10 years, it looks like the number of scouts is pretty static. It looks like that, in addition to that, it looks like you're seeing more of the analytics people cutting into the number of scouts you have. As the number of analytics and numbers people are hired, it seems like they usually are taken from the scouting budget. So that's another thing that I think is maybe a negative down the road trend for scouts that I think we will definitely try to keep an eye on. I think at the end of the day, when I talk to scouts, their greatest dissatisfaction is in comparison to coaching salaries. I think that while scout salaries have remained mostly static over the last 4 to 5 years, and again, this is anecdotal because I don't have the numbers yet, you're looking at assistant coaches' pay, especially on the college level, that's just skyrocketing. And I know that scouts are putting in all this time anonymously and working hard and being held accountable for that are wondering why they're not in line with that. And I don't think there are any easy answers for that. All right, moving on to some of the other topics related to compensation, but not salary necessarily. Pensions. You're looking at about half of them that get a pension, half that don't. And if you've been in scouting all your life and you don't have that to fall back on, that's a pretty hard truth. But it's no less true. Just under 50% right now are getting a pension. Next frame, please. All right, 401k match, another not really sexy topic, but one that's relevant. There is no standard. If you look at this, there aren't any majorities. There's not one way that everyone's doing things. About a quarter get basic match, about a fifth get match up to a fixed amount that I don't know. So it's kind of all across the board. Per diems, next screen, about 2/3 are getting $50 to $59 per day. That's pretty generally accepted, although some are a little higher than that. So I think that's pretty much in line with expectations. At least we're seeing somewhat of an industry standard on that. Whereas salaries and some other things are kind of depends on the team. All right, and let's see. Okay, yeah, about a third are making 60 plus on per diems. All right.